It's 8 p.m, live from central London. This is RT UK. Labour piles pressure onto Chancellor George Osborne as his latest budget puts his own party on the brink of civil war. But the Conservatives seek to heal the rift by announcing there will be no further welfare cuts. We speak live with SNP MP Paul Monaghan shortly. Well, for more on all of this, I'm joined by the SNP MP for Caithness, Sutherland and Easter Ross, Paul Monaghan. Thank you for coming into the studio this evening. Jeremy Corbyn's asked for George Osborne to resign. Should he go?
I think that's a matter for George Osborne. I think Mr Duncan Smith's resignation, however, does expose some deep rifts in the Conservative Party.
With the government on the back foot, can we expect to see your party, the SNP, work more closely with Labour to really put pressure on them in Parliament?
Well, what the SNP will do will be to talk in the interests of the Scottish people. What we are intent on doing is making sure that the voice of Scotland is heard strongly, loudly here at Westminster, and we will do whatever is right for the Scottish people as we judge it at the time.
What about George Osborne's ambitions to be the next Tory leader, which he's not really made any secret of, and even possibly the next Prime Minister? In your opinion, have they gone up in smoke?
Well, I think Mr Duncan Smith's resignation was very carefully timed Friday evening to hit all of the major news programmes. I think what it does do is expose the fact that there are several dynamics taking place within the Conservative Party at this time, and the leadership race is absolutely one of those dynamics.
Do you think that Duncan Smith's resignation was a display of integrity? Is what he's saying an actual fact, that he thinks that the cuts have gone too far, or do you put it down to something else?
I would put it down to something else. I think Mr Duncan Smith's well known to have led on welfare reform agenda for the last 6 years. He's been fully involved in it, fully committed to it. I think the fact that he's resigning now highlights the fact that, as I've said, the leadership race is now underway. I think it's also related to the EU referendum coming up on June the 23rd.
So how much of this is related to the EU referendum and not actually about the budget at all?
I think most of this is about the EU referendum or the leadership race within the Conservative Party. I think what we're seeing now is various Conservative MPs positioning themselves in terms of securing positions perhaps in the future when the leadership race starts to unfold and we see who the leaders in that particular contest are.
Is this whole referendum thing going to be fatal for David Cameron? I mean, it's exposing flaws in the agreement and the sort of coming together of the Conservative Party, isn't it?
Well, I think he said that he won't resign regardless of which way the vote will go, but I think it is clearly going to be a very difficult and challenging time for David Cameron in the run-up to June. I think his party is clearly divided. I think there's lots of tensions within the Conservative Party at this time. People that argue in different positions. I think clearly we'll wait and see what the result is. But for David Cameron himself, I think it probably is a very, very difficult time that will shape the future of his leadership.
Let's go back to the cuts for a minute. There are obviously current problems for the government, but it's only a short while, 10 months since they were voted in on a mandate for making cuts. They do have this mandate. Shouldn't they be continuing?
Well, I think the scale of the cuts that the Conservative Party are now proposing were not voiced during the election campaign. I think they are unprecedented. Personal independence payments alone are anticipated to affect 640,000 people, up to £3,500 a year. And these are the most vulnerable people in our society. I don't think anybody voted for that.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.